Hi everyone, happy holidays. Welcome to Creeps. My name is Lindsay. I am one of the reference librarians at RML Memorial Library and also the resident true crime junkie. It's getting closer to the end of the year and let's kind of all just admit it now. It's been an absolute crapshoot. So, since things have been upside down, twisted, all over the place, even for me, instead of one case today, I'm bringing you three. Three holiday-themed murders. Technically two and one mystery, but even still. I know we all have times when we thought, what happens if I kill one of my family members during the holidays? Well, we're going to find out. So, first one up, the mystery, the Fayetteville Fire. Fayetteville, West Virginia was a relatively small town. In 1945, it was quiet, peaceful, surrounded by farms, and it only had a main street to its name. George and Jenny Sauter, parents to, get this, 10 kids, 10 kids, but 9 were in the house. 9 were still with the family. One was out with the army still. Between roughly the ages of 23 and 2, went to sleep on Christmas Eve. So somewhere around 1 a.m., a fire broke out. And George, Jenny, their youngest, 2 teenagers, a boy and a girl, and one of their oldest, a 23-year-old, managed to escape the flames. However, the 5 other children were still trapped inside. And George did what he could, going as far as to try to drive a truck that he had, like a pickup truck, towards the house so he could reach the second floor to pull his kids out. However, for some reason, the truck that had been working earlier in the day no longer worked, and he was unable to do much more than just watch the house burn down with his kids inside. So during the 40s, there was something called a phone tree, a process called a phone tree. So firefighters were contacted this way. The teenage daughter that escaped ran to a neighbor's house, initiating the entire process. So one neighbor would call, so on and so forth. They would just keep going. Strangely enough, though, being that the fire department was literally only 2 miles down the road, it took them 7 hours to show up. So they didn't roll up until 8 a.m. And by that point, the entire house had been destroyed. Now here's the weird part. Of the 9 children in the house at the time, remember the oldest one is in the army, 4 made it out, and of the 5 that were left in the house, the police expected to find their remains, or at least some sign that they had been in the house, but they ransacked it. They ransacked all the ashes and everything. They didn't find anything, nothing, no remains, no bodies, nothing. It's weird, right? So where did they go if they weren't in the house? Now, conspiracy theorists have been all over this one for years. Supposedly, George Sauter was an anti-Mussolini Italian immigrant, and some speculate that his house was burned down and his kids were taken by the mafia. Of course, why not? And according to inspectors, the fire had been caused by a faulty wire, and determined that it was possible that the fire had gotten hot enough to cremate anyone in the house. But it actually takes 2 hours to cremate a body, and it has to be at 2,000 degrees. The house was destroyed in 45 minutes. Now, that being said, the Sauters were able to piece together a really weird chain of events that led up to the fire. People were stopping by to tell them about how their house was a fire hazard. Okay. A man parked on the highway near the home, watching the kids intently. Their telephone lines were cut, not burned or sparked of any kind. Block and tackle for an engine removal of a car was spotted near the house. And then finally, some other odd things that actually happened on the night of the fire. Somewhere around 12:30 a.m., when most of the family was asleep, the phone rang. And Jenny went to answer it. But all she could hear on the other line was laughing, like hysterical laughter, which is, already disturbing enough. So she just hung up, shrugging it off, and saw that her teenage daughter was asleep on the couch in the living room. But she also noticed that the drapes were open, and the front door was unlocked, and all the lights were still on. So she went and turned all the lights off, closed the drapes, locked the door, went about her business, and went back upstairs. However, minutes later, when she was trying to sleep, she heard a loud bang on the roof and the sound of something like rolling across it. And then an hour later, the house was completely on fire. All of this super suspicious, but unfortunately never led anywhere. The family even went as far as to turning to private investigators to do their own digging and searching, but they came up completely empty. There have been sightings of the children, and many years after the fire, in 1968, get this, Jenny received a postcard photo of a young man claiming to be her son, and he bore a completely uncanny resemblance to this kid. So Who knows? To end the story on a positive note, their youngest daughter, who was 2 at the time, is alive today. Crazy enough, she's alive today, and she's still searching for her siblings. She's very active in the online web sleuth community, and, who knows? Maybe somebody might be able to give her some information. On that note, let's move on to our next case. Probably one of my more favorites of this video, the Los Feliz murders. Now, if you haven't heard of this, get ready. I've always been fascinated by this one because of this house. It's still standing, and it's only ever been briefly occupied or used for storage. So as far as I know, it's still actually on the market right now, which is kind of crazy. So this takes place on December 6th, 1959 in Los Angeles, California. Cardiologist Harold Perelson and his wife Lillian were supposedly quiet, mild-mannered people. They have 3 kids. Their oldest daughter's name was Judy. And somewhere along the line, Harold got into a legal battle with a former partner of his that stole the rights to a medical device he had created. What ensued was a really long, drawn-out financial legal battle that cost the family almost all of their money and left them completely unstable. So, turns out, finances weren't the only thing that was unstable in the family. Harold was also having a really hard time with the situation, culminating in multiple suicide attempts, and was even threatened to be committed by his family. This all came to a head on December 6th. Harold decided to just kind of once and for all end it, and around 4:30 in the morning went into his bedroom and struck his wife in the head with a ball peen hammer multiple times. From here, he entered his daughter's, Judy's, room and attacked her, but he missed. She woke up screaming, and she managed to escape. Finally, she came across her mother, seeing that she was dead or dying in the bedroom, and she ran from the house to a neighbor's house and called the police. While she was gone, Harold found his other 2 kids had woken up, and he told them to just simply go back to sleep. This is just a nightmare. He took a handful of Nembutal, which if you're familiar with the Marilyn Monroe wouldn't say murder, but the Marilyn Monroe mystery, that's what they found in her system was Nembutal, or was supposed to be in her system at least. It was a very popular drug among the time. So he also took 31 of an unknown pill and was dead before the ambulance arrived. Judy and her younger siblings seem to have been adopted by an aunt, but don't seem to have had any word on the situation anytime recently. Now, I want to talk about the house for a second. The house, the urban legend is that the house is still decorated for Christmas, and that the tree and all the furniture and all the wrapped gifts are still inside. The house itself is fenced off, but a few urban explorers report seeing things still in place from the night of the murder. Well, we can actually debunk this, which is a first for us on Creeps here. The Los Feliz murder mansion was actually used for storage. Whatever's inside is from recent decades past, not from 1959, such as wrapping paper in rolls, modern appliances, and a pre-lit Christmas tree. Yeah. Also, the Perelsons were reportedly Jewish, so there's also that. Oh, and it's haunted, of course. So now for our final story. The O'Dowd Christmas murder. This one takes place in Jacksonville, Florida, and I'd never heard of this one before I started researching for this episode, and it's kind of a sad story, actually. Michelle O'Dowd was a 67-year-old grandmother who was letting a friend of hers stay when she found herself homeless. Her name was Patty White. She was 41. And Dowd gave her this opportunity to make a new start. But something changed by December 2011, and they stopped getting along really well. So O'Dowd had a twin brother who wasn't Patty's biggest fan at all, and he thought that she had some very strange intentions. Other members of the family that liked her a lot and welcomed her as one of their own. So finally, at some point, O'Dowd, who worked with her brother, stopped showing up to work, and her brother went over to the house. He noticed that the dog was still there, her car was still in the driveway, but the front door was wide open. The place was ransacked, items were missing, Christmas presents were just thrown everywhere, and at first glance, it really did look like a robbery. Under a huge pile of gifts, though, meant for her grandkids, was Michelle O'Dowd. The only thing visible of her was her foot, so these had been kind of like piled on top of her. When the gifts were finally moved, it was revealed that she'd been beaten and then strangled to death, and a vodka bottle was nearby, and police, who haven't confirmed or denied it, could have been the murder weapon. There was also a white towel put over her face. Now, it's fun to know here that her family, who liked Patty a lot, didn't know she was actually living with her at the time. They had no clue that she had let her stay with her. So she wasn't exactly a suspect, and the police realized that she'd been staying there. And Patty had stolen O'Dowd's credit cards and debit cards, and it was only when they realized that O'Dowd's account was still being used that they were able to track her down via ATM surveillance footage. They got her in South Carolina, and almost immediately they extradited her to Florida. In 2013, she was sentenced to 45 years after pleading guilty to second-degree murder, which is, come on, I mean, life, at least. Really? Anyway, I want to say thank you for everyone who's been watching and sticking with me for Creeps. In some aspects, I hope this has made your year a little bit better, because doing this web series really has been a highlight for me. I wish everyone a wonderful and safe holiday season and a happy new year, and I will see you all at the library at some point, hopefully. Take care. Happy 2021.